My neighbor's husband returned alone. What he sought left me trembling. Marlene is the name I go by. At 57 years of age, I have largely embraced a life of simplicity. In my youth, I embraced the journey of marriage, nurtured 2 children, and adorned the tranquil moments of my life with the joys of gardening, lending a hand at the library, and sharing warm conversations with neighbors over steaming cups of coffee. Drama was never something I sought, and I certainly never envisioned that love or longing would once more cross my path after all this time, especially not in such a manner. I thought that chapter of my life had been firmly closed long ago. Yet, an event unfolded, one that remains beyond my complete understanding. Never did I imagine that such an occurrence could befall me. I urge you, avoid the error I once made. The sun had begun its descent, casting a warm glow over the room when the knock echoed through the stillness. I had just wrapped up tidying the kitchen, a soft melody from the radio still dancing in my mind, when I assumed it was Diane returning for her baking dish. She and her husband Peter had joined us for dinner the previous evening, a cherished neighborhood tradition we had nurtured through the years. Yet, as I swung the door open, I was met not by Diane, but by an unexpected presence. It was indeed Peter. Isolated. His eyes were swollen and crimson, the sort of crimson that arises not from sleepless nights, but from an exhaustive, heart-wrenching weep. The aroma of whiskey wafted from his breath, a prelude to the words that were about to escape his lips. Marlene, I found myself at a loss for where to turn. It was unlike him. Peter was the sort of man who always had a joke at the ready, the kind who greeted you from across the street as if you were kin. Witnessing him in such a state, unsteady and exposed, sent a chilling shiver coursing through me. I swung the door open wider, my mind a blank canvas in that moment. Step inside. He entered and lingered uncertainly in the center of my living room, caught in a moment of indecision between taking a seat or making a hasty exit. I shut the door softly after him and paused, anticipation hanging in the air. After an extended pause, he finally spoke. She is gone. I blinked. Diane? He inclined his head, a difficult swallow catching in his throat. She filled her bag this morning, declaring her intention to visit her sister in Arizona. Her? She expressed a desire for time. My heart plummeted. I was completely unaware that they had been facing difficulties. They had always appeared so steadfast, transcending the mere boundaries of neighborliness. They shared a bond of friendship, a love that wraps around you like a warm blanket, filled with laughter and ease. Would you care to take a seat? I extended my offer with a soft touch. Peter nodded and settled into the edge of my couch, as if wary of being consumed by it entirely. I took a seat across from him in the armchair, pulling my cardigan a bit closer around me. He intertwined his fingers, generating warmth between his palms. I apologized for my sudden appearance. I found myself at a loss for whom to confide in. It's all right, I assured, and I truly felt that way. Yet, there was an additional sensation stirring within me. An unusual constriction envelopes my chest. The atmosphere weighed down upon me. Did she say that? She confided that she had been unhappy for years. Peter continued, his voice thick with emotion, that I have found myself overwhelmed, too disengaged from the world around me. I'm uncertain. I believed we were in a good place. I studied his features, uncertainty swirling within me, grappling with the right words to utter. I understood the sensation of a languid drift. My own marriage concluded in quietude as well, devoid of raised voices or the sound of doors being forcefully shut. Only emptiness. It begins with a simple act of neglecting to utter a good night and culminates in the existence of 2 separate lives cohabiting beneath the same ceiling. He gazed at me then, his eyes gentle yet empty. Have you ever sensed that you overlooked your moment to shine? As if there was an expectation for you to articulate or act in a particular way at a specific juncture, yet you found yourself silent or still. And now it shall remain forever lost to you. I inclined my head with deliberation, more often than I care to acknowledge. Peter inclined his body, resting his elbows upon his knees. I find myself reflecting on those fleeting moments as if they were flickering lights that I overlooked. She always seemed like a constant presence, a fixture in the tapestry of life. Silence enveloped the room once more. In the fading light, a wind chime tinkled softly, swaying gently in the evening breeze. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as we lingered in silence, each lost in contemplation of our lives and the paths we had chosen not to follow. A subtle change stirred within that stillness. A bond one never anticipated. The heaviness of his sorrow intertwined with an unarticulated emotion, creating a palpable tension in the air. I ascended gradually. "Allow me the pleasure of preparing some tea for you." He remained silent, merely nodding, his gaze locked on the floor, as if he feared it would reveal his secrets. In the kitchen, my hands quivered as I filled the kettle. Uncertainty lingered in my mind. Perhaps it was the closeness of the moment, or perhaps it was the realization that, for the first time in ages, I was no longer viewing Peter merely as my neighbor's spouse. I perceived him as a man. I found myself unprepared for the emotions it awakened within me. I entered the living room, cradling the tea, and set his cup down on the coffee table, the soft clink resonating in the stillness. The gentle steam wove its way between us, intertwining with the stillness that enveloped the moment. Peter lifted his gaze, a subtle smile gracing his lips, weary yet filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he murmured gently. I settled into the armchair, cradling my mug in my hands, allowing the warmth to anchor me in the moment. The room had succumbed to dimness, illuminated solely by the warm, orange glow of the lamp that stood sentinel beside me. The remainder of the world seemed distant and removed. He savored a sip, then reclined, exhaling deeply and deliberately. "How peculiar," he whispered. "After years of sharing your life with someone, their absence transforms the very essence of your home, leaving it feeling foreign and unrecognizable." I observed him with great attention. "Have you had a conversation with anyone else? Is it a friend? Perhaps your brother?" He gently shook his head, a subtle gesture of disbelief. I found myself unable to do so. "With you, everything feels unique." That caused a constriction in my chest that I refrained from inquiring about his meaning. Uncertainty lingered within me, a hesitation to uncover the truth. Not at this moment. Grief had a way of drawing people toward the comfort of warmth. There was an undeniable essence in the act of being seen, genuinely seen, that enveloped you in a sensation of teetering on the brink of something perilous, yet exhilarating. Peter placed his mug on the table and surveyed the room with a thoughtful gaze. "It seems you haven't made many alterations in this place since Dan's departure, have you?" My eyelids fluttered momentarily. The name struck with an intensity one hadn't anticipated. Nearly 9 years had slipped by since Dan's departure, 8 times. It seemed as though it were merely yesterday when he playfully mocked me for my overly drenched ferns. At times, it seemed like an entirely different existence. "No," I said in a hushed tone. In some inexplicable way, I found myself unable to do so. Peter nodded as if he grasped the concept. "You always appeared so serene, as if you had come to terms with everything." "That I certainly did." I spoke, though my tone lacked the full weight of conviction, even to my own ears. "In due course. Yet, there are still moments when I enter a room and the anticipation of his presence lingers in the air. Evenings when I instinctively lay out 2 settings for dinner." His gaze softened as he cast his eyes downward, studying his hands. "For years, I have observed you, you know. Not in an odd manner. Simply observing. You always presented yourself as if you had discovered tranquility following the tempest. It instilled a sense of hope within me." Uncertainty enveloped my thoughts, leaving me at a loss for words. For quite some time now, compliments directed at men have lost their authenticity. However, this experience was unlike any other. It transcended mere appearance or charmed. It was an essence that ran far beneath the surface. Something that pierced the veils I endeavored to conceal. The silence lingered once more, yet now it was heavy, brimming with the weight of unvoiced thoughts. Peter took a moment to clear his throat. "I suppose it's time for me to take my leave." I never intended to linger for this duration. I accompanied him, guiding him toward the door. Upon stepping onto the porch, he halted and cast a glance in my direction. His expression appeared fragmented, as if he were engaged in an internal struggle. "Marlene." He started, then hesitated. His jaw clenched with tension. I lingered in anticipation. He finally spoke. "Last night, after dinner, I experienced a moment, watching you laugh, listening to your stories. A revelation dawned upon me. It has been ages since I experienced such a profound sense of ease." I parted my lips, only to seal them once more. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat echoing in a way that felt almost deafening. He offered me a soft smile, his eyes glimmering with a warmth that felt deeply affectionate. I apologize if that was inappropriate. I simply had to express it. As I ventured onto the porch alongside him, the cool night air caressed my arms. "It's not out of line," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "It is sincere." We remained in that moment, untouched and still, simply gazing into one another's eyes. He nodded, descended the porch steps, and made his way across the lawn toward the shadowy silhouette of his house. I observed him until his figure faded into the shadows beyond the door. In that suspended moment, I lingered, my heart pounding, grappling with the realization that a boundary had been crossed, yet instinctively aware that the dynamics of our connection had irrevocably shifted. And I found myself uncertain if I could ever return to the facade of ignorance. Upon the arrival of dawn, the illumination appeared transformed. It seeped through my kitchen blinds in gentle, muted bands, as if the very world were caught in a delicate balance, wavering between light and darkness. As I gently swirled my coffee, my gaze drifted to the backyard, where the soft breeze danced through the worn fabric of the patio umbrella. The very backyard where Peter and Diane had once gathered for summer barbecues, where laughter flowed over the fences like a sweet melody, yet now the atmosphere hung heavy, charged with anticipation. Rest had eluded me. I found myself revisiting Peter's words repeatedly, akin to a record caught in a groove, endlessly looping. The scene on the porch replayed in my thoughts, an endless cycle of memories. His gaze met mine, not as a mere neighbor, but as a man who had been concealing something profound for far too long. I ought to have experienced a pang of guilt. Perhaps I did, just a touch. Diane had yet to initiate the divorce proceedings. She had not departed for eternity. She had simply vanished for the time being. Yet, guilt was not the most dominant whisper echoing in my mind. It was truly extraordinary, inquisitiveness, isolation. Indeed, a gentle feeling that I had long hesitated to acknowledge. By midday, I found myself in the backyard, diligently pulling weeds from the flower bed's edge when a sound caught my attention. I looked up and there he was once more. Peter stood just beyond, cradling a small cardboard box in his hands. "Good morning," I shouted, wiping the grime from my gloves. "I stumbled upon this in the attic. A few possessed volumes on gardening that I thought you could find them more beneficial than I could." He raised the box ever so slightly, as though seeking to validate his presence. Yet, we both understood that the essence lay far beyond the pages themselves. A smile graced my lips. "Absolutely. Have him come here." A minute later, he found himself once more on my porch, reminiscent of the previous night. Yet, on this occasion, the burden he carried felt somewhat less oppressive. I welcomed him inside, and we settled at the kitchen table, sifting through the time-worn tomes, feigning interest in their pages, as if that were the sole purpose of our gathering. "Are you feeling all right today?" I inquired. He let out a breath. "Improved." Articulating it aloud seemed to provide some relief. In this moment, a stillness enveloped the air. "Apologies if I overstepped yesterday," he said with caution, his gaze locked onto mine. "I wish to keep things simple for you." "You did not," I stated. After a moment's pause, perhaps the complexities had already woven themselves into our silence before either of us spoke, he offered a subtle nod. "I find myself unexpectedly captivated by someone once more." "Not at this moment." "This is not the way." I gazed at my hands, my thumb gliding along the edge of my mug. "I feel the same way." We lingered in that moment, balanced precariously on the brink of an undefined reality that eluded our grasp. The regulations had shifted, yet the blueprint remained unwritten. In a moment of stillness, He extended his hand and gently brushed against mine. It was neither a seizure nor a request, merely a gesture. Cozy, authentic, unwavering. I paused for a moment, not from fear, but from a deep sense of wonder at the rarity of being touched without any strings attached. Only existence. He expressed a longing for the presence of someone who truly listens, who observes my presence. His voice trembled slightly on that final word. I gazed up at him, and in that moment I no longer perceived him as Diane's husband. I caught a glimpse of Peter, a man in the throes of both disintegration and reconstruction simultaneously. And a warmth unfurled within me. Yielding to the moment, I caught sight of you, I murmured softly. He refrained from leaning in. He kept his distance from me. He remained beside me, his hand resting over mine, as we both embraced the silence, delicate and unyielding, too precious to disturb. At last, the clock resonated its chime throughout the living room. He cast a fleeting glance in its direction and rose gradually to his feet. "I should take my leave," he remarked. "I believe it's time for me to unravel a few matters." I accompanied him to the door once more, my heart weighed down yet curiously buoyant all at once. Before he ventured out, he cast one final glance in my direction. "May I return for another visit?" "Merely to engage in conversation." I inclined my head in agreement. "Certainly." He departed, and I remained at the threshold, my hand gently resting on the frame, absorbing the warmth of his presence that still hung in the air. A new chapter was unfolding, and though we lacked a name for it, I sensed, deep within, that we had both ventured into uncharted territory. Not impulsive, not prohibited, merely unexplored. In that moment, fear dissipated, and I found myself ready to embrace the unknown path ahead. The days that ensued were serene, yet filled with unspoken depth. Peter did not visit each day. At times, it was merely a wave from across the yard, a subtle nod exchanged when our paths intersected at the mailbox. Yet, when he finally arrived, we settled down and engaged in conversation concerning the void, concerning all matters, reflecting on the echoes of childhood, the meals that brought us joy, and the books that lingered unfinished between us. Moments that seemed trivial in the moment, yet enveloped us in a cocoon of warmth and security. He never insisted. I did not inquire, we merely occupied the same space. As the evening settled and the sky began to drape itself in twilight, a knock echoed once more. As I swung the door open, I noticed he stood there, his hands empty, devoid of books or any other items. He appeared serene, yet a hidden depth lingered in his gaze. A form of determination. "May I enter?" he inquired. I silently moved aside, allowing him to go by. He lingered in my living room, hands tucked into his pockets, surveying the space as if it were entirely new to him. "Diane called," he said at last. "She wishes to engage in conversation. Next week, we shall convene. However, I believe it serves merely to formalize matters." A peculiar blend of melancholy and comprehension washed over me. I chose not to commemorate it. I, too, did not mourn it. I have just caught wind of it. Apologies escaped my lips, sincere and heavy with meaning, not solely for him, but for the fragments of their bond that lay shattered, for the moments that could never be mended. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. I expected to feel more shattered. Yet, the reality is that being present in this moment, engaging in conversation with you, has compelled me to confront certain truths I had long avoided acknowledging. He inhaled deeply, then made his way to the window, gazing out at the yard as it succumbed to the encroaching darkness. Have you ever pondered whether certain individuals enter our lives not to remain, but to illuminate aspects of ourselves that we may have overlooked? "Always," I whispered softly. He pivoted to meet my gaze. "Marlene, I find myself at a loss regarding this matter. Though the meaning eludes me for now, being with you feels genuine and straightforward, even amidst the complexities. Your presence serves as a poignant reminder of my humanity, of my enduring capacity to experience genuine emotions." My throat constricted. I gazed at him, truly gazed, and a revelation dawned upon me, one I had never allowed myself to accept. He wasn't seeking a vow from me. He was not seeking my approval. He extended a gift of truth. "I'm not searching for a substitute," I declared, moving in closer. I hold no anticipation for answers. Yet, I understand the sensation of sitting opposite someone and experiencing a profound sense of connection where solitude fades away. He remained silent. Once more, he extended his hand, that familiar, silent movement, his fingers intertwining with mine. This time, I moved forward without a moment's pause. We nestled on the couch, devoid of fervor, free from entanglements, simply existing, near, aware, secure. The cicadas serenaded the night air with their persistent hum. A gentle breeze wafted through the open window, bringing with it the sweet fragrance of lilac. I nestled against his shoulder, while he gently placed his cheek atop my head. For the first time in years, I found myself free from the weight of anticipation for something to commence or the sorrow of something that had concluded. I simply felt present in this moment. As he departed that evening, he pressed a gentle kiss to my cheek, a fleeting yet profound gesture. As I lingered at the threshold, observing him fade into the shadows, a sense of calm washed over me. Unlike the turmoil I had experienced previously, I experienced a profound stillness. I experienced a profound sense of recognition. A surge of vitality coursed through me. Perhaps this was the essence of it all along. Neither a commencement nor a conclusion, yet a return, to my own reflection. Until now, to something genuine.